Welcome back to Moto-Mecca Garage. It has been quite a while since we shot a video, and to our small but very loyal subscribers, I want to say thank you for sticking with us for this last year. There has been a lot going on. So we promise that in these upcoming weeks, we will have lots and lots of cool, interesting, and compelling content. And there's no better way to start off the new year of Moto-Mecca Media with talking about some cool new things that we've collected since we last joined you on YouTube. Behind me is my 1978 Ferrari 308 GTS. Purchased this beautiful Ferrari 308 GTS from the good people at Beverly Hills Car Club in Los Angeles, California a few months ago. And for anyone who is in the market for cool, different, interesting, compelling, and collectible cars like this one, I highly recommend the folks at Beverly Hills Car Club. We didn't leave the dealership that day with just one, but we did end up leaving with two interesting and cool collectible cars, and you'll just have to stick with us for a future video to find out what that other car. So why did I buy a 1978 Ferrari 308 GTS? Well, since I was a little kid, I have always loved cars. And one of my earliest memories of cars was collecting Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. And one of the cars that I had was a silver version of this exact car. And I loved it. I loved how it looked. I thought it was super cool. And it's really special, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to own a full-size version of this car. But that was one of the key reasons why I picked this one. It was also very important to me personally to own an Enzo era car. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the brand, in the late 1940s, Enzo Ferrari started making his own automobiles and his own race cars. He had been working for other Italian manufacturers prior to that, helping them win races. And I wanted to have a car that he was intimately involved in the design and the tuning and the manufacture and the looks and the feel. And they're not making any more of those cars, right? There's only a certain number of cars that was made while the old man was alive. And I wanted to have a car that had his personal touch involved in it. And so that was those were the two real key reasons why I purchased this specific model of car. Now, why don't we take a look under the hood, or I guess what you could call the hood, to see what makes the 308 a 308. So let's start with how you get access to the engine. So the engine of this car is in the back. Technically, it's in the middle. And inside the driver's side door is a latch that you pull, and it pops it open. So the Ferrari 308 is called the 308 because it has a 3-liter V8 twin-cam all-aluminum engine, which for the 1970s was a really trick engine. This car debuted in the hardtop configuration in 1976. That is the 308 GTB, which stands for Gran Turismo Berlinetta. This car is a Spider. It has the removable top, which we'll look at in just a little while. But for the 1970s, an engine like this was pretty advanced. This is an early 308 before all of the crazy emissions things started happening with Ferraris. So this car is carbureted. It does not have fuel injection. It has 4 twin-choke Weber carburetors. And the really cool thing about the carbureted version of this car is it makes the most power. The engine is transversely mounted, technically in the middle of the car. The industry generally considers a mid-engine car a vehicle that has the engine mounted somewhere in between the axles. So there are cars that have engines in the front that are mid-engined because the engine is behind the axles. And there are cars like this one that is rear mid-engined, that has the engine in front of the rear axles, and that's the configuration of this car. The engine is mounted kind of sideways, transverse, as compared to the drivetrain of the car. Ferrari wanted to make this car compact, make it lightweight, keep the weight very low, and give the car really balanced handling. And a terrific way to do that is to locate the engine behind the driver's compartment, but in front of the rear axles. And that's what we have with this car. This is the luggage compartment on the Ferrari 308. No, there is not a lot of room back here. This car would be wonderful for maybe a really quick overnight trip, maybe 2 nights if you pack really light. And certainly anything that you take with you is going to get hot back here. So if you make a run to pick up a pizza, a very small pizza, or run for takeout, this is a tremendous place to keep your food warm while you drive yourself back to your destination. If you are purchasing ice cream, popsicles, or anything perishable, this is not where you want to put those things. It gets super, super hot back here. Now, let's take a look at what's under the front hood of the car. How do we get underneath the hood of the car? Well, kind of like on the rear, there's another one of these beautiful handles that we pull, and now the front is popped open. Many super cool classic European cars, this hood is hinged at the front, not the back. So to open it, we grab right here, lift, and our hood is open. What mysteries await us underneath the hood of this 308? Well, not too many things in the front. So we have a radiator, so this is a water-cooled engine. We have a reservoir for our windshield wiper fluid. We have the location for our spare tire, which I have taken out of this car, basically to just save weight, and it makes it a lot easier for me to get access to what is underneath the access panel that I've taken off, and that is our battery. The previous owner of this vehicle, or one of the previous owners of this vehicle, was kind enough to do 2 really smart things that I would recommend on any car that really isn't going to be your daily driver. One of those is they connected a battery disconnect switch. So if this car is going to sit for extended periods of time and we're worried about anything drawing power off the battery and potentially killing the battery, we can simply flip the switch, no more battery, no more draw on the battery, and then turn it back on when we're ready to go. Something wonderful about these cars is they do not have complicated electronics. There is no engine management computer. There are no smart screens. This car is extremely, extremely Spartan. So there's really not anything more than the little quartz clock that we'll see when we take a look at the interior to draw power off of the battery. But just to be on the safe side, we can flip that switch and we won't be draining any power off the battery. Battery tender of choice for Moto-Mecca is NOCO. And when this car is parked for extended periods of time, it is connected to a NOCO battery tender. They're currently not a sponsor, but if they'd like to reach out, we would certainly entertain that relationship. Other than that, that's really all that's going on underneath the hood of a Ferrari 308. After you have taken a look at what is or what isn't underneath the hood of your Ferrari 308, when it comes time to close the hood, we have this shock up front, and it's very important to not try to force the hood down. There's actually a little release pin that you have to push first. So we lift up just a little bit, we push the...
Go.
Okay, a common question I get about this car is, how do you put gas in it? Well, maybe it's behind this louvered cover right here. Let's find out. We have a key that's separate from the key that we use to get in the car and start it. And when we open it, we find there's nothing but a window underneath. So I guess it's not this side. Why don't we try the driver's side? Okay, maybe it's on the driver's side. Ah, yes. Here is where you put the gas into your 1978 Ferrari 308 GTS. And what would a video about an Italian sports car be without talking about the looks and the style of the car? Something else about this car that I was really drawn to, and you might be drawn to as well, is just the way the car looks. It has a classically beautiful set of lines to it. Not overdone, not understated, but just beautifully classic Ferrari. Many people may not know that the gentleman who designed this car at a company called Pininfarina is who did the design of this vehicle and many, many other Italian cars, including another car that we'll be reviewing at Moto-Mecca, was a gentleman named Leonardo Fioravanti. And he was famous not only for the Ferrari 308, but also the 5-liter V12 Ferrari that was for sale around the same time as this car, which was the BB 512 and BB 512i. He also designed the Ferrari 288 GTO, which might be my favorite Ferrari of all time. And he designed the venerable F40. And for people who are familiar with Ferrari sports cars, you're going to see a lot of this 308 DNA in future cars like the F40 and like the 288 GTO, like the 328 that succeeded this car. But this is the original, and I absolutely love the way that this car looks. What would a classic sports car be without a cool set of sweet pop-up headlights? Let's take a look at the inside of this beautiful classic Ferrari. And for someone who hasn't ridden in a 308 before, or a 512 before, the first question that someone will ask is, how exactly do I open these doors? Where is the handle? Is it back here? It happens to be right here, and like everything else about the design of this car, it's just a little bit different.
3.
So the first thing that you might notice that's unique about this car is it has a completely removable roof. So it is the Spider. This entire center section of roof comes off, and you can enjoy a little time in the sun. Now, many of you might recognize this car from a famous American TV show, Magnum P.I., and this is indeed the model of car that Magnum P.I. drove very early in the series. I think the one he drove was like a 1980 or a 1981, but very similar to this one. His was, of course, in red. This one is in white. Unfortunately, I don't get mistaken for Tom Selleck all that much, but if you want to recreate the full Magnum P.I. experience, take the roof off and enjoy a little vitamin D. When it comes to storage inside the Ferrari 308, there really is not a whole lot. Many folks think that this might be a glove box. This is actually a cover for the fuse panel. So where do you put things? Where do you put your phone? Where do you put your paperwork? Ferrari put 2 small little leather pouches that have little snaps that close it on each of the doors, and that is where you're going to have to fit all of the things that you don't want to hold in your lap inside the Ferrari 308. This car is equipped with a standard issue Momo steering wheel, which a lot of Ferraris have Momo steering wheels. What's kind of curious about this steering wheel is that it does not adjust. There is no telescoping. You cannot move it up and down. It is fixed. Some people who own these cars will add additional adapters if they want to get the steering wheel a little bit closer. You can do that, but this steering wheel is 100% stock as it came from the factory. A really cool little Easter egg inside the Ferrari 308 is there's a plate right on top of the steering wheel that tells you the make and model of the car and the body number, which interestingly enough is the vehicle identification number for this car. Because this car was made prior to 1981, it doesn't have one of those really long, complicated vehicle identification numbers that you might be familiar with. This car has just a 5-digit number, and that's the VIN. And what would a classic car be without a really super weird horn? So let's hear what the horn on a Ferrari 308 sounds like. Made in the days before Ferrari sold automatic transmissions in their cars. So this has a classic Ferrari 5-speed gated shifter in a dogleg configuration. And what that means is that first gear is down here on the left all the way to the bottom. Reverse is all the way up. And I had heard that these transmissions were really awesome and fantastic. And now, having driven this car for some period of time, I can attest to the fact that the transmission in this car is absolutely magnificent. The clutch is fantastic, the gated shifter is wonderful, and it really makes you want to own a modern Ferrari also with a 5-speed manual gearbox, but they're not making those anymore, which is another thing that makes this car really unique and really special, is the transmission. This car came from the factory equipped with air conditioning made by Borletti. Certainly the most bizarre air conditioning system I've ever experienced. It's extremely cold. It uses R12. It uses the old school style refrigerant, and it's absolutely Arctic cold in here when you turn the air conditioning on. A little bit of air comes out of these defroster vents up top, so that's what these are. You can turn them to adjust them. But most of the air conditioning comes out this big tube that sits in between the passenger and the driver, kind of at knee level, and blows air that's almost 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius straight at your kneecap. So if you're ever really hot from the waist down, this is the car you want. Certainly when I bought this car, I knew that it was going to need some restorative work. And I figured if Enzo Ferrari was still with us, he would really appreciate someone taking a car that had clearly been used and clearly been driven and rehabilitating it back to a drivable place. So this car needs a certain amount of rehabilitation, and that includes some of the badging around the center controls. So until those get redone, I'll describe what they are. We have a hazard light switch, and we have a switch to raise and lower the antenna. We have a window washer switch to spray windshield washer fluid on the front windshield. We have defroster controls, and we have defroster temperature control, which is actually different than the temperature control from the air conditioner. This controls the heat and the defrost. And we also have a choke, which is another reminder that this is a carbureted car. And when you start it cold, we want to put the choke all the way towards the red dot, which seems a little counterintuitive because the car is cold. But then shortly after starting the car, we can move it into the running mode, which is all the way forward towards the blue dot. Lastly, when you want to get out of your Ferrari 308, kind of like getting in, how do I open the door? Where is the door handle? Well, it has been cleverly hidden right up underneath here is a little lever that we pull, and you can get out of your Ferrari 308. That is a quick tour of my 1978 Ferrari 308 GTS. In the upcoming months and upcoming videos, you'll see the process of this car getting restored and refreshed back to something that doesn't look exactly like it did when it came off the showroom, but much closer to what it looked like when it left the showroom down in Southern California 44 years ago. As always, we greatly appreciate your support. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions about this car, please hit us up in the comments below, and we would be happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much for joining us for another video, and look forward to the next one where we're going to look at another car that we bought earlier in 2022. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.